عشان Soomaaliya kugu weydiinaa David waxaa sameynaysay 4 sano oo PhD research صح miya
waa sax
That's nice
once sameynaya PhD ka arrimaha Somali state
maxaa kugu kalifay
igu ali
maxaa kugu kalifay kusoo dhawaada telefishinka Global Somali TV aniguna waxaan ahay Cabdi Ilay xaruntiisa magaalada London ayaa daawanaysa dhinacayga waxaa fadhiya David oo ah muwaadin reer Baaritaan isla markaana research ku sameeyay Deegaanka Qurba Joogta haddaba waxaan weydiin doonaa sababta ku kaliftay in uu David sameeyo research ku saabsan Qurba Joogta iyo sida uu arko aragtidiisa in Qurba Joogta ka soo jeeda Deegaanka ay ilaaliyeen dhaqankooda in kaleeto David, welcome to Global Somali TV.
Hi, Abdul Fattah.
Oh, thank you so much. And first introduce to us, who are you?
My name is David Sinclair. I'm a researcher from the Centre for Peace and Security, Coventry, University, UK. And I've been researching how Somalis in the diaspora living in countries like the UK and Kenya have been responding to the conflict between the ONLF and the Ethiopian state. So their activities during the conflict, but also after the conflict ended in 2018.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. What is motivated to you to research Somali diaspora from the Somali region state?
So I think I first started doing research with Somalis in my master's degree, and I was in the capital of Uganda, Kampala. And at that time I was speaking with people who had become refugees as a result of the conflict in Somalia. Yeah, the 91 conflict.
91.
Yeah. So after that, I became interested in migration, and I decided to make an application for researching Somali migration from Ethiopia, looking at the diaspora. Why did I decide to research this subject? Well, I think curiosity is a big reason. Also interested in speaking with people from other cultures than my own. And big interest in East Africa, the culture, the politics of Somalis increasing with time, my own interest, and also,
Thank you so much. What inspired you to interested in Somali diaspora community abroad?
The Somali diaspora community abroad. So I think a big reason was the involvement in the conflict that happened between 1994 and 2018 in the region between the ONLF and the Ethiopian state. And the Somali diaspora community in the UK is very big. And the city where I live, Bristol, has big Somali community. Also London does. Very active in the region, in the politics, and sometimes not so well known within British society, some of these activities. If we compare with other diasporas, like Palestinian diaspora, very well known. Somalis, not so much so.
Does the experience of the Somali diaspora influence to your research?
Well, many of the people I was speaking with, they had experiences of violence in the region. They were involved in human rights advocacy, and I came to understand those experiences through my research, how those experiences shaped the kind of activism they were doing. How they were trying to get the attention of the British government, and how they were trying to provide assistance to the population in the region during the conflict. It was also very interesting to me the range of opinions, attitudes towards the conflict within the Somali communities, and how they've been responding to the regional government. The regional government's engagement over time under Cabdi Ilay through the 2018 change of government and now under Mustafa Mohamed Omar. So all of these patterns of activity over time, they have influenced, I think, my research and my findings quite significantly. Yeah.
Did you add what he did the previous government led by Cabdi Ilay?
So there was a big counterinsurgency operation in the region, and one of the big consequences of the counterinsurgency was not just the targeting of the ONLF fighters, but also the effect on the population in the region. So a lot of these experiences of political violence, as they say, there's different forms of political violence. Obviously, rape is one, forced displacement is another, destruction of property, disappearances, among others. A lot of these experiences were reflected in the conversations, the interviews I was doing with the people who'd migrated from the region, but also in the younger generations who were influenced by the conversations of their parents, uncles, aunts, grandparents who had migrated from the region. So I was quite interested, coming back to what I was saying about how in countries like the UK, there are many communities, diaspora communities, that are engaged in activism, and they're responding to different issues that are going on in different parts of the world. It was interesting to me that the Somali diaspora in the UK, for example, when it was responding to the situation in Ethiopia during the conflict, was often not receiving as much attention as other conflicts in other parts of the world. I use the example Palestine. We can see similarities with this in the conflict that is now going on in Sudan. In the media, in the policy environments, some conflicts receive a lot more attention than others. That is one challenge. I think another challenge is how the diaspora is trying to influence what is happening in the region and the amount of influence they have with the government. So sometimes the influence is limited by certain factors, whether it's the relationship the diaspora has with the federal government or the regional government. The engagement of the government has become more regional over time under Cabdi Ilay. It started to become more regional level engagement. But the difficulties in the relationship between the diaspora and the regional government has meant, I think, that the diaspora has often struggled to find ways to engage in an effective way. And of course, when the conflict was happening, the engagement was always, or at least for many community members, not all, but many, was against the state, against the regional government. So the challenge is, I think, for the diaspora, how to help to meet the needs of the population in the region, whether it's protection from violence in the past, but now educational needs, resource distribution, political participation, how to help the population meet those needs, and at the same time to improve the relationship with the government, which is necessary in order to have that influence.
Yeah. In what way do you think the diaspora contribution to the development of the Somali regional state?
Yeah, so I think the diaspora contribution can be very good. There's one very significant. One significant way is financial. The remittance is very huge. We know that across the Horn of Africa, the Somali diaspora is very influential, putting money into local development projects, sometimes in coordination with the government, sometimes just directly. Obviously, the droughts that were happening in the region, huge amounts of resources helping the local population. I think if channeled through in coordination with the government and the non-profit sector, the influence on development can be very big. Often, I think the money is transferred not so much in an organized way. So maybe the challenge is how to to send the money in a way that is more organized and targeted. Not just through certain clan networks, which I think sometimes is how the money is sent. The other form of influence is the knowledge and the ideas. So a lot of the diaspora in the UK, countries like the UK, but also North America, other parts of Europe, have a lot of education, skills, technical expertise that the communities in Somali region can really benefit from. Again, it's finding the right way to transfer those ideas, that knowledge, so the communities can benefit. And
Thank you, David. How do members of the Somali diaspora maintain their cultural identity?
So that's a good question. I think a lot of it at the community level is through cultural events. But also within the family, the influence is very strong. So from the parents to the children, through the language, the music, cooking. I mean, culture is a very broad thing. Of course, I'm not Somali, so I'm judging this from the point of view of someone who has learned the Somali culture through the research process. But the cultural identity has different layers, right? I think it is... you have the Somali diaspora that is coming from all over the Horn of Africa, and the cultural identity, Somali Nimo, is very strong. And from that point of view, the community, they have the cohesion. In London, for example, where we're doing this interview now, the communities they have a lot of cohesion, and the networks, the way people socialize, it's not based on the states in the Horn of Africa, Ethiopia, Somalia, Kenya. It's just based on being Somali. So at that level, I think that people maintain the cultural identity through having experiences of migrating to the UK and of being Somalis and being different from the host population, as they say, the mainstream society. And that experience, I think, means that people look to their cultural identity, to who they have things in common with, speak the same language with, have the same background. And yeah, it's an interesting question, but it's a very powerful force. And I think, the masjid as well, that's another big one, the religion.
Thank you so much, David, to having us. And do you have any about research, previous government led by Cabdi Ilay, what he done about genocide?
Okay, so I think a big question is, okay, so Cabdi Ilay, there is the violence that was committed through his regime, through the Liu police, and the impact on the population. But this violence was not only committed by Cabdi Ilay, it's part of the history of violence that the population have experienced, that goes a long way back in time to when Ethiopia was being formed as a nation at the end of the 19th century. So I think the violence that took place under Cabdi Ilay's regime needs to be put in the context of that history. It can't be viewed in isolation. And one thing I learned from my research is the influence of what they call the intergenerational traumatic memories. So those traumas that are transmitted, passed on from one generation to another generation, and how those memories have influenced the way people understand the Ethiopian state, their sense of citizenship. Somali belonging in Ethiopia. This is a big issue for the diaspora. As I said, the diaspora has been shaped by the violence that was committed under Cabdi Ilay's regime, but there are people I spoke to who spoke about events that took place under Haile Selassie's regime and under Mengistu Haile Mariam, it's under the Derg, that is. So yeah, how to meet these memories and how to create healing of the relationship between Somalis and Ethiopia. So Somalis have a feeling of being included in the country. They are not excluded, like they're outsiders. This is a big theme through my research, this idea of Somalis being excluded from being members of the Ethiopian political community. So the issue of justice, transitional justice, how can justice be met for Somalis in Ethiopia? What that means, if it's political, economic, cultural, and can this be achieved through the government or not?
Thank you so much. What's the impact do you hope your research will be leave on the Somali diaspora and their homeland?
So what I really hope from my research, one of the reasons I'm doing this interview now is the community engagement. So to bring the findings back to the Somali diaspora. I spoke with many people who gave me their time and put a lot of effort into the research. So I want to bring the findings back and to try and stimulate discussion amongst the Somali diaspora in the UK and other parts of the world about what it means to be Somalis in Ethiopia and how they can contribute to the future of the region in a positive way. How they can address the history of the region and how they can express their own sense of connection to the region. So that is one way. I would also like to, if possible, speak with the government and have a way of improving the relationship between the diaspora and the government to try and increase the diaspora's potential to engage in the development of the region, to contribute to the prosperity of the region, and if possible, to address to make sure the region will be more peaceful in the future, because such a big element of my research was the conflict, but now the region is in peace. So how can the peace be maintained in the future?
The question is, what's the difference the previous government led by Cabdi Ilay and the government now led by President Mustafa Mohamed Omar?
So the end of the fighting, the peace that is now in the region since Mustafa Mohamed Omar, since his government took office, I think that is the biggest difference. I can also see from my research that the government is trying to engage in a transitional justice process to address the history of the region. And I think they are trying to increase the autonomy. So this all-important question of self-determination, of what is the future of the region? Historically, it's been kind of in this state between being integrated in Ethiopia, being independent, or being a part of the Somali Wayne. So I think the regional government under Mustafa Mohamed Omar, they are making some effort to increase the autonomy, the self-rule of the region, and the development, to contribute positively to the development of the region. I think the infrastructure, there was a lot of work to improving the infrastructure that is very important to the diaspora. And beyond that, the education system, healthcare, that is receiving more money as well. So all of these things, I think, will help to give Somalis, I hope, will help to give Somalis a feeling like they belong in the country and like the state is doing something for them. I'm happy to see that.
Are you willing to go back home and, for example, in Jigjiga and all of the regions to see Gode, Kabridahar, Wachale, all of the regions?
Yes.
See beautiful land and traditional and everything.
Yeah, it's very important to me. I spent so long, last 4 years, doing research on this subject. I have not yet traveled to the region, so that is one thing I would like to do in the near future, if possible, to practice my Afsumaliga, to improve my Somali level, and also to get more of a feeling for the people and the culture. Yeah. That's one thing I would really like to do. I've traveled. I spent some time in Kenya, but I've not yet been to the Somali region, Ethiopia. So, yeah, and if possible, I would like to find a way to do more research in the region, to do more work on the future, try and find a way to engage, to give some more positive outcome for the population. Yeah.
Thank you so much. My last question is: do you know some words about Somali language?
Inyar, af Somaliga inyar wan hadlaya, such as I know I can say the word akli, smart, intelligent, dokon. Shakain. Otherwise, maga. And there are some others, but it's hard to just to say out of conversation. Nin, af, habar. Habar is aunt, right? Habar gaar. And
Bashan Somali kugu weydiina. David waxaa sameynaysay 4 sano oo PhD research sax miya?
Waa sax.
That's nice.
Once sameynaya PhD ka arrimaha Somali state.
Maxaa kugu kalifay?
Igu ali?
Maxaa kugu kalifay?
Sababtoo waa xiiso leh.
That's nice. David waa ujeedaan daawadayaal luqadda Soomaaliga ayuu baranayaa waxaana noo sheegay in uu rabo inuu deegaanka Soomaalida yimaado si uu u barto luqadda u horumariyo. Si gooni waxaan ula hadlaynaa dhalinyarada ama carruurta fish and gypsiga ee jooga UK inay bartaan afkoodii hooyo. Waalidiintan waxaan ku codsanaynaa inay deegaanadii ku celiyaan si ay u soo bartaan. David waa ku mahad celinaynaa. barnaamijkii halkaas ayaan kusoo afmeeraynaa sida aan David inoo sheegay 4 sano ayuu research ku sameynayay bulshada degan dowlad deegaanka isaga uu sameeyay shahaadada heerka ugu sareysa PhD ayuu ku sameeyay. David aad iyo aad ay u mahadsantahay.
Aad iyo aad mahadsantahay saaxiib.